It's a pleasure to be associated with Tuttle and Cal Lutheran. And you talk about local heroes. The school is absolutely a local hero that has grown from a very small school, only a couple decades ago, to a very significant contributor and player. We moved here from the San Fernando Valley 16 years ago. So I started the firm 35 years ago. I was a product of Cal State Northridge, studied at Art Center at night to learn some of the techniques, then got employed at Xerox, although I worked through school in design. And at Xerox I was thrown into an innovation lab with 330 psychologists and 200 programmers developing the first touchscreen interface. That changed my perspective on design and how we see design as a tool because it was all about human factors and developing the first touchscreen. You couldn't get anyone to touch the screen. People didn't even know what a computer was in the 70s. All they saw was a TV. Your mother told you never put your fingerprints on the TV and stay 5 feet away because there's radiation. So now we're trying to get people to touch something. This is touch me, and unlike this monitor here, you know, it's about this deep, it's about this tall, and the screen's this tiny little screen, and it's deep inside a hole because we're shooting LED beams across to make a grid. So when you put your finger in, touch the screen, it breaks the grid. Nobody wanted to put the pen inside this deep, dark hole, you know, electrical device to do it. So by changing proportions, working with human factors, spending months and months and months, we did learn and get people to touch the screen. We would watch you know, for hours and days upon end as we were testing people. We had surveillance cameras, we had rooms with curtains. And the first person who touched it, there was a roar of applaud and people screaming. And of course, the person heard it, turned around, looked at the wall, and what's going on? And then that test was blown because they got thrown off. But eventually, we got it to happen, and I never truly foresaw that would become what it is today. Even I've caught myself trying to swipe my computer screen, and you see 2-year-olds, on the airplanes, swiping, screens and doing things that you just could never imagine. So it's a new world, it's a great world. I think it is a great time for innovation, it's a great time for design. So I'm going to go through a multitude of slides. I'll start with a little bit of insight that I think is relevant. There's some what I call design speak from non-designers. And then I'm going to run through a list, not the full list of everything we've done obviously, but a comprehensive list of examples of how we apply our methodology. And the reason I do that is because I want to show everyone that putting something to practice is the true test. That we're not here professing theory about how we do this. That the breadth and depth and diversity of work that comes out of the methodology is very telling in itself. And then we'll get into a little bit more about the hows and whys, what innovation can do, and then I'll end with actually showing how we have applied psychosthetics, what psychosthetics really is all about. Because design thinking, as everyone hopefully knows today, is a methodology that is sound, that's proven, but what we've done is really been design thinking from back in the 70s with Xerox, and what psychosthetics does is pull it all together into tools that everyone here can use. You should walk away today understanding how to use the tools. You may not use them at the depth that we use them, but you'll get a good understanding of how to use them and improve whatever you're doing. And so we'll show the results of that, and then leave some final words of wisdom from someone other than myself, and then I can take some Q&A. Sound good to everyone?
Yes.
Perfect. Good, because that's the only plan I have.
Just touch the screen.
Talk about human interface, right? So, the name of the talk today is Imagine, Empower, Design, and Think. Some words of wisdom, Maya Angelou. I've learned people will forget what you've said. Oh, skip the slide. People will forget what you did. Most importantly, people will never forget how you made them feel. This is the essence of what we do as designers, is looking deep inside of people. After leaving Xerox, I started my firm in 1980. In 1985, I decided I would write an underpinning for the firm that would guide us to be human-centric. We really didn't have the programs or the credibility with our clients, but I wanted something to drive us in a direction that was human-centric. So what I wrote was that it's not how you feel about the design and the experience, it's how it makes you feel about yourself. So I related what we were doing to really understanding that what does it mean to people, and why can you get someone to change their body language or their feeling about themselves through design? That it wasn't all about just the design in itself, it really was about people in themselves. So I talked about this diversity, breadth, and depth. So I'm going to run through examples, and as I said, the point here is quality of design that you can recognize, but diversity. And how can you apply tools to be that diverse? And it's very exciting for me because I never imagined that we would have such a diverse portfolio of work, and I'm not showing everything that we do here. So for Xylus, we have done over 40 different products that are kitchen products. You may have seen the salad spinner, you may have seen the cheese grater in all of the restaurants. All these products are sold globally. They're sold from China to Japan to Australia to Korea, throughout Canada, North America, into Mexico, South America, of course through Europe, and the Middle East. Xylus is a Swiss-based company. The term is Swiss innovation. They're brilliant, brilliant clients. All the design and innovation was done here by us in their current product portfolio, pretty much. They have some that wasn't done by us. And it's manufactured in China, but it is Swiss innovation. They are brilliant. They started this company all based on some very simple products, high integrity, high quality, and they've really been able to build this into a global brand. For Core, Core makes water bottles, and this is a company that came to us, I think 7 or 8 years ago. We took an investment in Core. We saw what they were doing, which was that they wanted to motivate people through the design of a water bottle to stop using disposable containers, the throwaway bottles that has an enormous impact on our planet. We also, at that time, discovered and researched along with them and found that BPA was a health threat that was emerging. So we worked with Eastman Plastics to develop the first BPA plastic, which is called Triton, which is now ubiquitous. Baby bottles, all kinds of, anything that touches your food should be BPA free, and it's typically that product. So that became an incredible success. Core today is in over 120 countries. And from a small incubation of 2 entrepreneurs who came to us and said they want to do something about water bottles and discover what was the meaning of water, they were able to grow that to a multinational presence. And when we were, great part is when we were done with the program and we had the product tooled up, at that point they had enough money to buy 5,000 products. I said, what are you going to do? I said, we'll throw it up on a website and hope it sells. I said, this is too big of a story. So we actually wrote the story, we put it out to the design media, and it went viral. And it went so viral that Gwyneth Paltrow started using the water bottle. She got into the writers of Iron Man 2. The writers wrote it into the movie without anyone knowing. So you had a huge, at least $1 million product placement in that movie, time and time again. And then all of a sudden it became explosive. People wanted to recognize the bottle. So you actually see it in quite a few movies. Some of the things that we do with the techniques I'll show is futuring. This concept of a gaming cell phone that has a high resolution screen, that has this incredible glass and presence, was something that we proposed to LG. Anybody have an idea? how long ago that might have been? Over 12 years ago. We showed LG what the future was going to be, and they still, every time we meet with them, the solar clients, it always comes up. It's like, why didn't we put that phone out? We should have put that phone out. Local company we work with, very proud to work with Line 6, who's a local success story for those of you who know or don't know. We worked with them to develop the design language, the strategy for some of their technology. This is Amplify. Amplify is a disruptive technology for guitar players. They make digital amps. This is the first cloud-based Bluetooth 5-speaker amp that you can use anywhere, and you can plug in and download tones. You can plug in and download recordings. You can play along with Hendrix. As you learn the song, you can fade Hendrix out and fade yourself in. I think there's probably only one person I met in this room who could actually do that, but theoretically we could all do that. And they've had great success. This was Product of the Year through Guitar Player. This was Best of Show at NAMM. So Guitar Center's seen great success with the product. And this is in an industry that really rejects innovation. You know, the guitar business is notorious for rejecting innovation. You know, and which is interesting because it's a creative tool. But we also work with Panavision, which are creative tools, and they also are even superstitious of innovation. You know, it has to create some benefit. So they've found a real market, they've found a real presence, and they're a very successful company. One of the products we did for them was a redesign. So you see the product on the left is the same product on the right. The product on the left really wasn't selling through very well. You know, they had presence in Apple Store, all the competitors were selling, and they were trickling through. They engaged us to do something about that and analyze and interview and personify and really identify what was happening. So we created a new device that has a cable that plugs into your device, your iOS device, so it's not hanging on it. We added a weight since there's other cables attached to it, so it stays solid. We put all of the other working end on one end. We gave it some lights. In the process, we developed what we call the Ready to Rock logo. And this has been incredibly successful. Now you go into the Apple Store and you ask them about the product, or go into the Guitar Center and talk to the salespeople, and they say, you know, we know it's the same product as the other one, but this just sells through over and over again because it connects with people. One of the early programs we did, which is a significant success, is that MiniMed brought us in to understand what was happening with their diabetic infusion pump. So they created this incredible technology that helps diabetics, can increase the quality and length of their life, and adoption rates were falling. They had gone from $60 million in sales to $40 million in sales, and were falling. And they brought us in and said, help us discover what's going wrong. What we did was that we actually wore the diabetic infusion pumps, pumping saline 24 hours a day for 4 days, and became the diabetic. And what we found was there was a stigma attached to that device. That I had a bar a few minutes ago. I would have taken out my insulin pump. Do we have any diabetics? Okay, well, let me explain. You would take it out. You would give yourself a bolus of insulin to duplicate what your pancreas was doing, and then you would put it away. Well, if you take out this device, which we did, and we could just feel the stares. And once in a while, people would ask, what's wrong with you? And what you realize is that, you know, the intimidation, the stigma of that was the reason people would forego something that could help their quality of life. So we redesigned it based around all the existing FDA 510K approvals into this device. And we did this in translucent blue years before Apple did translucent blue. But after Swatch had done translucents, and we created it to look more like a pager. So that when you're in that environment, you reach into your purse, your pocket, whatever, and you take this out, and it looks like you're getting a page. The adoption rates went through the roof. They went up to $270 million in revenue 3 years later. That triggered an acquisition of $3.6 billion by Medtronic on $270 million in sales. That's the result, that's the impact of design on all of us. That it has that effect, that we will forego quality of life. In fact, when we were doing smartphones for the blind, and I don't have this in the portfolio, it's on our website, we were working with the founder of the company, and he was blind from birth, and as we developed three-dimensional models for him to feel and interact with, the one he liked, he took and put up to his ear like this. Well, we do that as designers all the time. We want to see how it feels next to our ear. He raises his head and instead of telling us how it feels, he says, "How do I look?" That tells you everything about the human condition, right? The need for acceptance, for affirmation from others is so powerful that he can't tell if someone's looking at him or not, but he cares deeply about how he looks to others. I thought that was phenomenal. So I was talking about diversity and innovation and creation. This is a new product that will launch next month. That is the first fold-up grill. The handles become the legs. It folds up. It has a catch for the grease when you fold it up. It catches all the grease. It has a tremendous amount of grilling area, and you carry it like a briefcase. It was interesting, when we were reviewing the prototypes, the engineer brought it into a restaurant. So Ruth Chris, we were there for dinner. And he walked in with this, and it looked so normal. People weren't looking at him and saying, "What are you doing walking to Ruth Chris with a barbecue?" Right? But it's comfortable, it works well, it does its job. The gas container goes inside. So you think through everything about how you interact with something. And then you think about people who aren't yourselves. I mean, we're blessed that we like to drive. I like to drive at my age, and I've liked to drive since I was 16. And that's great, but we go to the East Coast, we go to the rest of the world, and people aren't driving. Do they have a barbecue that they can use? Do they have a small patio? Can they use that? Even here, we have a barbecue at home, but when we're on the go, what do we do? So we're expecting very big things from this new barbecue innovation. It's one of the growing areas. One of the areas that we've worked in is working with a company called WikiPad. WikiPad has had us develop their branding and their products, and this is a clamp-on. It has basically an elastic band that connects the left and right sides that clamps onto your iPad or your Android, and it turns it into a full Xbox gaming control system. So you can do high-speed interactive gaming, streaming gaming, just like you would in front of your television, except for you can do it with your tablet. Of course, when you have a tablet this close, the experience actually becomes much richer because your peripheral vision isn't distracting you. You're just buried in the game and you're controlling it. So there's another company that's new. They showed this at the Consumer Electronics Show. I think this is targeted to be in the Apple stores in the next few months. And it's pretty revolutionary. I mean, people are writing about it now and saying this is the best thing they've ever seen for gaming because it's going to change the rules of gaming. Another interesting product, Musini, is a device that sits on the floor for kids. It has lights and music, and when you tap your foot on the ground, it picks up that vibration like a seismograph, which it actually has inside of it, and it reacts. So children tap their feet, and it sings to them and responds and does this different level of interaction to get the kids to enjoy it and be active. All right, very, very interesting dynamic. Go from toys to very serious products. These are ventilators for our client Hamilton out of Switzerland. And the depth and the knowledge and the insight it took to develop a transport ventilator was incredible. We're all over the world working with first attenders, testing them, interviewing them, seeing what will it take to make a transport ventilator that can help someone who's been in an accident breathe and go with them through the ambulance and the helicopter into surgery if they have to, into an ICU or recovery without having to disconnect them and hook them up to another ventilator. You know, life-saving equipment, and the adoption rates on this have also soared. But we had to figure everything out, how to protect all of the connections, how to develop it so that you could use it with gloves. They didn't want a touch screen, right? They've got these big heavy gloves because they're in a helicopter, they're in snow environments, but they've got to control this. So a rotary knob is critical, but that rotary knob has to be protected because it gets bumped all around. So you get very, very deep into the, not just the psyche and psychology, but the actual human factors in the interaction. Speaking of interaction, this was shown at the Consumer Electronics Show just a few weeks ago. This is the new interface called Sharp Central. So for Sharp, we developed, and it took a couple years to develop this interface that on your iPad or your phone or your tablet, that you can actually control all of your TV, all of your media. You can pick what you want to watch, and it'll give you the options of where it's playing and whether you can download it or whether it's live or whether you want to record it or whether you want to sort through this. And this is a real challenge for all of us because I have 4 controllers at home, and you know, if we have guests over, you know, it's a nightmare. You know, if we leave the house and when the house sits, it's like, you know, every situation is different, right? But now you finally have solutions that make sense and that are empowering. You feel good about yourself. You don't feel like, you know, I can't figure this out. I mean, maybe if I was a gamer, I would enjoy not being able to figure it out until I can figure it out and master it, but that's not me and that's not most of the world. So we can't gamify these types of things. You got to make them simple and easy to use, but also rich. We saw the Xylus salad spinner. We learned that, in particular, women were using the salad spinner to wash their delicates in. That triggered developing a hand-powered washing machine. Pour the water through and do a rinse cycle, take it out, wring it out, and you don't have to go to the laundromat or go to the coin laundry in the apartment. You could put it in a dorm, you could put it in a RV, that you could travel around with it and do things that you can't do now. Flowwater is a startup out of the Bay Area, which the entrepreneur was a college student who was a competitive surfer. And he, as his capstone project, decided that he would approach this problem of all of the garbage on the beach. And he said, you know, we just don't need to see any more water bottles. So he roughly built a water filtration system, took it to surf competitions, and it went viral. No one wanted disposable water bottles. They all wanted reusable. So they engaged with us to develop their branding and their new product language and graphics to embrace and propose and create this sense of fresh, clean water. So it's 7 times filtered, it's purified, and it's actually incredibly refreshing. I saw one of the quotes from one owner of a gym who's been in the gym business for 30+ years, and he says, this is the most significant piece of gym equipment that we've ever bought. He says there's nothing that matches this as far as adoption and benefit and how people feel great, because everybody wants to drink great water. We talk about the psyche and psychology of design. Our prototype got taken away from us because they're so short of devices. So one of the first samples came to us and we were using it in our office, and they replaced it with another unit. And the unit, you know, wasn't anywhere near the same design, and everyone in my office stopped using it, right? And it's all about the water, right? I was called, talking to the CEO, and I said, yeah, you got to get this device out of here. None of us use it. I said, the water tastes so different. You know, it's just got like an odor or something's wrong with it. He just started laughing at me. He says, that's the exact same technology. But what you see and what you believe, you know, you're going to support. When JBL did speakers, they did an A/B speaker test, and they had one speaker here and one speaker in front of you there. This one is a black speaker with white tweeter, white mid-range, white woofer. This is on the other side, white tweeter, black mid-range, white woofer. Sure enough, everyone said the one with the black mid-range that was in front of them, but didn't pop out, had diminished mid-range. You know, that's how powerful it is. You know, in fact, we met with a vintner. There's a winemaker, I should say, over here by our office. So we go towards Conejo Ridge. There's a little winery there that's going to expand. Brilliant man. And he was talking about, you know, his philosophy, and he's an MD, PhD who started winemaking, and he was talking about how much beautifying food affects your appetite. And he's convinced that if you present food beautifully, you will enjoy the food more, you'll eat less, and you start to think about it, and say, you know, I think that that's true. You know, I've always argued that, you know, sushi is beautiful and you enjoy eating it, but if you throw me just, you know, a bunch of raw fish, I'm not going to eat it. So what we see and what we do becomes critical. Some of the work we do becomes very global, and I wanted to give one example of what some of these decks look like. So this is part of the innovation deck that we use to create innovation for Unilever. Unilever engaged us and said, let's see what you guys can do with this challenge. We want to create innovations that are sustainable, dealing with water and laundry, since we're the largest producer of laundry in the world, of laundry detergent, that could be adopted by 1 billion people 5 years after its launch. We did deep ethnography, we did deep studies in Holland, in Great Britain, and all throughout India. And then we started innovation tanks through the eyes of those people, not through our own eyes. And these are the kind of visuals and decks that you see, and they become posters, and they go up on the walls, and you go into a room like that, and they're filled with graphics. It's immersive. And then you start thinking and creating, and everyone can do this in this room if you're doing something new, and it's very telling. You get brilliant ideas. People in the world don't get enough vitamins, or they have health risks or bacteria risks, or it could be malaria, that you could put additives into the detergent that stay behind on the cloths. You don't have to think of laundry as being purely subtractive. It could be both subtractive and additive. There could be a leave behind that gets onto your skin and is absorbed into your body that gives you the benefit. If you're a woman wearing a burqa in the Middle East, you're definitely not getting enough sunlight to get all those vitamins, to get that vitamin. You could address that through laundry and through the detergent. One of the other things we saw is that fetching water is a huge challenge in most of the world. People don't have running water. And I was recently in Africa, and I saw people going 4 and 5 miles by foot to get buckets of water or containers of water. You know, pumping, and the pump is slow and it's hard. You know, we're so blessed that we have running water, let alone heating and air conditioning and everything else we have. And most of the world is going out to get water. So one of the things in the innovation tank, we saw how people do bucket washes. As we started addressing that, we said our goal would be to get it to 1 bucket of water. One of the scientists, and the collaborations were with scientists, marketeers, all types of engineers coming together. And one scientist says, I have a dormant patent on a flocculation pill, which, if we use, can solve this problem. So we developed a single bucket system. You throw the clothes in, you throw the water in, you add the detergent, you add that pill. That pill coagulates the dirt and the detergent into a thin piece of gel. You can take the clothes out, you can throw the gel into your garden, it just helps keep it moist, and the water is soft and clean, and you can dispose of the water and you wring out your clothes. Now you don't have to use 5 buckets of water, you can only use 1. And I've seen, which is commonly known in India, even if the houses that have running water, you might be 4 stories up and water doesn't run every day. Same thing in the Middle East or Africa. You know, it's true in a lot of the world. Even if you live in a city, you don't have running water. 5 buckets of water is a lot of work. And you can imagine, as, you know, I don't think I could carry 5 buckets of water upstairs every day to do laundry and to do everything else. So these kind of innovations come out of these processes. LG had huge success through colors in washing machines. Same process applied to just the strategy of what colors will resonate with people, right? Exactly the same strategy. Creating colors that resonate with people meant that this became a multi-billion-dollar business for LG. That they could leave these in the front of Lowe's, people would walk in and make a spontaneous purchase of a $2,000 set of washer and dryer, and then they would figure out what to do with the working ones at home. Give them to the kids, give them to somebody, right? Because they would just fall in love with it. I mean, that's, you know, laundry was a very boring business just a couple decades ago. In fact, we worked for Amana. One of our first projects in the rebirth of the Amana brand was we worked in laundry with Amana, and they had the most boring, awful design that anybody had seen, not from me, because we were brought in by the advertising group DDB. DDB got hired to advertise their new washer and dryer. First thing they did was they did a focus group test and a preference test, and out of 10 washing sets, or 10 washer dryer sets, Amana actually didn't rank number 10, it actually ranked 0. Most respondents didn't even want to talk about it because they were so offended by the look of it. They just said, I would never consider that ever. So DDB said, we can't do anything with this great advertising budget. We need to fix what we're going to advertise. They did a global search for design. We were brought in very late in the game. Everything's tooled up. They think they're ready to go to market. They built a factory for $100 million, all these employees, and they don't know what to do. So we started getting in, doing all of our work, started testing, exploring, going in, and what we did was simply change the back panel and change the knob. So we aligned the back panel with bright colors that looked fresh against a white background, and we color-coded some of the settings. And once we did that, parents said, oh, I can mentor my 12-year-old or my 14-year-old to do their own laundry. I said, do you know how big that is? This is the only machine that I've ever seen could do that. Then we created a knob that was just this beautiful white glowing knob, super polished with a soft gel center. And we said, our goal is to get people to reach and feel that. And sure enough, people would reach and feel it, and they would connect it. It went from 0 to number 2. It was second to Maytag. In the preference studies after that, it cost us 35 cents to change that product. It increased the retail price point from $400 to $500. 25%, $100 increase with 35 cents. All through strategically understanding what turns people on, what turns people off, what's inside of their heads. Innovations and incubations. We created our own guitar company called RKS Guitars. There's one on the back wall over there. You know, sometimes we just get out of control, I think, and we do some wild things like this, and it turned into a company, and thousands of guitars later, we got some pretty big names who adopted it. Dave Mason, actually, I brought in as a partner. Call that Dave and the Boys, that's his Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction. Ronnie Wood of the Rolling Stones playing them, Daniel Ash of the Bauhaus, and the list of professional musicians who adopted this instrument were phenomenal. But we had to resolve everything, and our goal was to make them a better player. How do you make the best in the world better? Well, you can do it. You can do it if you get in and you really understand, and you can experiment, and you can iterate and prototype. This is actually another Southern California success story, Discus Dental. Discus Dental was started by 3 guys who worked out together, sitting around a table after a workout, of course drinking beer after having a great workout, and the dentist, Bill Dorfman, complaining about how things in dentistry just weren't aesthetic, that it's an aesthetic business and things just, you know, they're not aesthetic. Robert Heyman, who was CEO of Discus, came from Giorgio fame. His father started Giorgio. Robert worked in that business, and he said, yeah, I can do something about that. The third guy says, well, I've got a few $1,000, you know, I'll throw it into the pot. Let's go start a business. You know, here's $15,000 or $7,000. Go start a business. Right? This company grew and grew and grew. Was acquired by Philips just a couple years ago. And this product here, which is the whitening system, Robert had, and I always joke with him, he had said, if we could sell 100,000 of these, we'd be golden. because it was low cost, it was high profitability. Well, what happened was the dentists transformed. They said, well, wait a minute, now I don't have to have people look at me and say, I'm just giving them pain, which is a big challenge for dentists. I said, I can increase the quality of life for my patients. I can give them a happier, more beautiful smile. I can make them feel good about themselves and have others feel good about themselves. So instead of selling 100,000 of these, they're selling 100,000 a week of this product. They had a huge exit. I don't think it's public, the number, but it's big, right? I mean, and the guy who invested that little bit of money never had to work on the company. He's up in the Bay Area, and attend a couple board meetings, and that was probably the wisest investment that I think anybody's ever made. But truly successful things come out of that. We also worked on multitude of products, but composites. How do you deliver composites? Right? Understanding what it's like to be a dental assistant and what their life is like when they are dealing with a tube of material that's $100. And if they take out too much composite for your filling, you're wasting very expensive material. If you put too little, then you have to dig it all out, and that's a problem. If you leave the cap off, it's going to aerate and be ruined. And all the time that you have to measure out this expensive material, sure enough, the dentist is talking to you and talking about this, that, or I need you to do this, and you're supposed to measure this out. So we put 1/10 of a gram every half click. It clicks. We added a cap. We took the plunger mechanism and we made it as an indicator. This was all for free. We didn't have to spend any money to do this. All we had to do was just change the rules of design, understanding what their needs were. She needed to see whether she's going to run out, whether she has a large dose. We made the cap flat so it can stand on end, so she can take it out, put it there, and just reach over and grab it. Just resolved everything through form and function to create a new experience. One of the other incubations that we have is RKS Guitars. DNA. After RKS Guitars, we created this company called DNA. DNA is guitar accessories. There's one hanging on the wall, an RKS guitar, on a hanger that's an active hanger. It's a gravity-activated hanger that when you lift it, clear gates go into pockets. And when you drop it on out of nowhere, these clear gates close around the neck of the guitar. Just kind of magical stuff. This is the starfish stand. We saw where and understood and had seen live was guitars falling. Well, if you take 3 legs on a tripod for the camera, put something over the center, it's very stable. But if you put a guitar in it, you have to make the back leg short and the stability in the center of gravity go completely out of whack. It doesn't take much to knock that guitar over. So we added 2 more legs and patented 2 more legs. And the stability now is tremendous. We just were at NAMM 2 weeks ago, which is the musical show. We spent 4 days listening to guitar players' stories of how their guitar got wrecked and got tossed and got bumped, and how the drummer tripped over it, and all these stories. And they said, if I had had that, my guitar still would not have been broken. And there's something about the instrument, once it's broken, even if it's repaired perfectly, you always know it. You just have something about it, and they're very valuable. What we just looked at was, how do you protect and preserve instruments or things of value? You can go right into a commodity business. One of the last examples I think I'm showing is Fresh Realm. Fresh Realm is a company that is addressing a global problem. We know 40% of the food, perishable food, rots before it gets to us. Tremendous. That's globally, but that also is in the U.S. 40% of the perishable food rots. That's 34 million tons of food in the United States alone. It's crazy. 150 trillion calories. If you can change that, if you can change it by 15%, you can feed 25 million people. That's amazing. In our country, in this country, 50 million people are not getting enough food. They're food insecure. They don't know where their next meal is coming from. They go hungry a lot of the time. You can affect that. So working with Fresh Realm, we developed their branding, but we also developed this cold box. This is a cold box that ships as fast as 40 hours from the field to your doorstep for the same price you would pay for the food at retail. Now you don't have preservatives. It's kept cold and fresh. This box holds the food at 40 degrees for 40 hours without any consumables, any dry ice, or any refrigeration. It has ice packs that are frozen that go inside. It gets full. You can get about a week's worth of food in this. It's delivered round trip for about $11 because it falls under 17 inches squared, which is a critical dimension for UPS and FedEx, that it will ship by size, not by weight. You get it, you take the food out, you put it on your doorstep, they pick it up. Goes back, it's refurbished, it's sanitized, it's reloaded, and it's put back on the street. Zero carbon footprint, right? Zero cost to the consumer, higher quality food, fresher, convenience at your doorstep. I mean, there's nothing that is left to be challenged on their system. Everything is a benefit. Everything is a win-win. But they're so responsible. They said, we're not going to compete with everyone in the food system. We'll be a backbone company. Develop the cloud, develop the system. We have the growers, we have the packers, we have the system, and then people who already are in this food system can engage with us, and we'll be the backbone company to help those companies to continue to be successful and bring higher benefit. But the effect of increasing the amount of food in distribution means the cost of food is going to go down, and the quality of life for people is going to go up. And the reliance on fresh food is much healthier. So Nutrisystems engaged with them as the first company, and what they found in their tests was people stayed on the fresh food system 4 times longer. You don't have to get dry food or freeze-dried food and go to the store and get other food and mix it up. And when you're done with your diet, are you going to continue to eat freeze-dried food? No, no one does, right? But now people are learning to eat the right foods, so they get off the diet and they stay healthy because they've changed their eating habits. They're eating fresh foods. The same food they could buy at the grocery store, they could buy through another source producer, through FreshCo. You know, the kind of benefits that we see. Well, I do have a couple more examples. Other impactful programs. This is for HydroPack. HydroPack is a cellulose bag filled with electrolytes, sugar, flavors, and vitamins. If you drop this into water, it self-inflates and will give 500 mils of water. So this is for disaster relief. 1 helicopter load of HydroPacks is equivalent to 15 helicopter loads of bottled water. But the beauty is that it's a cellulose fiber that was developed with Eastman Plastics. And that fiber, when it expands, strips away all viruses and bacteria. And we work with the retired Surgeon General of the Air Force who lives in Africa. And he has been there and seen water not make it the last mile. Purification systems not able to get through jungles. Water not able to get to people, and he has watched as people drink water from ponds with dead bodies floating in them. 3 days is about all we get without water. You know, 30 days without food, 3 days without water. This system you can drop in and it expands and you get pure water. We've seen it demonstrated where it's dropped into, even in Los Angeles and other cities, dropped into raw sewage, and it expands and they can pull it out and drink pure water right out of it. Amazing technology. And our job was to see how we can get adoption and disrupt the bottled water systems that are in place. Because this is good. And if you could save 1 life, it's tremendous. Imagine what these types of technologies can do. And this is kind of the ecosystem that goes all along with water. The last product slide I'll show you is Teddy Ruxpin. Teddy Ruxpin was an incredible story. Anybody here have a Teddy Ruxpin as a kid, or give a Teddy Ruxpin? I see a smiling person back here. Have good memories of Teddy Ruxpin? Yeah, good. So we developed Teddy Ruxpin, which was an animated teddy bear in '85. Started out as a puppet show. They had this animatronic bear made out of wood carvings and a cassette player, and it was not great looking. It was pretty scary looking, but it talked to you. And we were engaged to commercialize that and redesign that. And what we did was make it into a cuddly teddy bear that looked like a real teddy bear, but all of a sudden it opened its eyes and started talking and telling stories. one of the things that we came up with was that as we're developing this, we had to use an off-the-shelf cassette mechanism. Back in those days, to stop a cassette, you had to press stop, and then you had to press stop again to get it to eject. Everybody remember that? Well, imagine teaching a 5-year-old who loves this talking teddy bear to do that. It's never going to happen, right? Because when the cassette runs out, they have to eject, flip the cassette around. Okay. So we developed was cam mechanisms in the plastic so that all they had to do is lift the door. When they lift the door, press stop again. Put the cassette in, press the door, and press play. Also massive adoption. It's done in 1985. It's a 30-year anniversary of Teddy Ruxpin. And they continued selling up until 2 years ago. First year's sales were $78 million. Second year's sales were $330 million. Phenomenal global success. I say it's one of the most successful toys of all time because it truly brought benefit, not only created this incredible amount of revenue, and that's actually my daughter when she was 5. So she'll be 30 this May. And actually today is my granddaughter's birthday, her daughter. Okay, so I guess everybody's got the point. Let's get on to what are we doing with innovation. What's innovation going to do? Who's going to do something for the world today? Somewhere around here, someone, and then maybe in this room, is going to use technology, innovation, design to change the world. Right? They're going to invent the future. Well, I say, as you do that, what's critical, people don't think about is resolving the past. How do you resolve the past to get to the future? Because we don't come in with a clean sheet of paper. We've all had our good experiences, our bad experiences, and we need to resolve that and address that. So as we look forward, through that windshield, we also have to look back and understand where are people coming from. And that's the key, I think, to creating success. We do that through interviewing. Last 5 years, we've done 2,200 interviews, and they're always running, and that number's growing. That means that we've been all over the world, and in fact, we were in West Africa just months before the breakout, and living with people. You interview these people for hours. You watch what they do, then you talk to them, and then what we do is we use what we call sacrificial concepts. You make up stuff that just to get them to react. You show them stuff, and you start to pull out of them what could be. Because if you ask people what they like and dislike, it's a very famous saying that Henry Ford said, if I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Right? And it's very true. If you ask someone what they want, they're going to tell you what the reference point is. They can't tell you what could be. We can tell people what can be if we're thinking about this. We know what can be. We can explore and innovate and create and do brainstorms. We also do this because we need to empathize with others than ourselves. Right? We're designing for that person who lives in Africa. I don't care how much empathy we have. If we're not there living with them, understanding them, how do we see through their eyes? Our goal is that if that person was designing for themselves and they had all of our wisdom, our experience, our talent, and our skill, what would they do for themselves? Well, they can't do that, but we can get into their heads to the point of where we can do it. So it's like empathy on steroids and beyond. And these are just a couple of examples. Can anybody guess what that is in the middle? No? Anybody else? Yeah, this is how different the world is when you get out there. This is an ambulance. That is an ambulance in an HIV and AIDS clinic that serves 2,000 people in Africa. That's the kind of stuff we should be doing something about. Literally someone can't walk, they need an ambulance, and they're thrown into a wheelbarrow and then taken miles and miles on dirt roads. It's an amazing world out there. So what's our responsibility, and what do we use as tools? We use psychosthetics. While we use psychosthetics, there's 4 critical lenses that everyone has to look through in business. People are the center focus. You at the same time have a lens in looking at the brand. We're looking at the product or service, and we're looking at the business architecture, all simultaneously. How do you create a sustainable business, a sustainable solution, a resonant brand. And who are you doing that for? So we use that process, and we use psychoaesthetics in the iterative design and development process. So you're discovering, creating, and realizing. These are the 3 basic steps when you actually get into them, and this is just a short list of everything that you need to do. And in my book, we have an Empower framework. So you see highlighted, engage stakeholders, map the opportunity. You'll see the acronym Empower. Once you get into the creation phase, you have another list of everything that you have to do. And these are short lists. There's more to it than this. Right? But you get the highlights of what we're doing. And then realization, you also have a list, and it ends with rewarding your consumer. If you can do the 7 things and you can go through the steps and you can iterate rapidly and test, you're bound to be successful. I mean, actually, our track record, it's very interesting, of our client engagements, we've rarely seen a failure in business. We've only seen success since the last 20 years since we've employed this. You use psychoaesthetics and the mapping all through the process. So it's not a strategy tool that you do once you set aside. You build these maps, you build these personas, you put them up on the wall, you live with them forever. You may update them, you may refresh them. So what are the keys to that? 2 big keys: psychoaesthetic mapping, which I'll show you, and the hero's journey, or the hero's narrative. So who's familiar with Joseph Campbell? Brilliant mind. Scholar, world traveler, author, lecturer, discovered a universal truth that in all societies throughout time, the story of the heroes emerged. I mean, just amazing. And you talk about people who relate to design and speak about, I think, my world. I think they're talking to me. I don't think people are looking for the meaning of life as much as they're looking for the experience of being alive. It's such profound words. Yeah, it's probably speaking to everyone. But I think those words are speaking to me as a designer. And what I said when I discovered Campbell is that it's my job as a designer just to use design as a tool. We just want to take everyone on a journey. And this is the journey we're on every day of our life. What are we attracted to? What engages us? What do we adopt? How are we affirmed through a moment of truth? And how do we evangelize? How do we share that? That's the experience we're on every day of our life. That's the affirmation that we're all looking for every day of our life. That's the reason that anyone came today. You're attracted. We're being engaged. Right? Hopefully you'll adopt some of the ideas, you'll share them, and when you receive that affirmation, like, oh, that's interesting, or that's good, you know, I can see that, I understand that. That sharing gives you the affirmation from the outside, but it's the same as the hero's journey. And in the hero's journey, there's a mentor, and that mentor, in our case, is the product or the service or the interface. We have to mentor people through this process. So if you look at this journey and you realize everyone's on this journey every single day of their life. You know, I bought this shirt because I was on the journey. Right? I put it on this morning because I wanted to attract and engage and get people to adopt, and this became a tool for me to do that. I didn't buy a new shirt because I wore out my last shirt. I can't remember the last time I wore a shirt out. Right? Other person we jumped in and understood was Maslow. Started working with Maslow's hierarchy, which is interesting because today it could be completely upside down, for those of you who know Maslow. You can see people walking around with an iPhone 6 who could be homeless, you know, and hungry, but, you know, they've got that one thing, you know. But what we did was that we took it further and we started mapping. We call it psychoaesthetic mapping. This is a great tool. You can see this on our website. You can adopt it, learn it. It's open source. We map interactivity against self-actualization. This is a universal tool, repeatable, scalable, and we haven't seen anything that we couldn't apply it to. Absolutely terrified us as we started using it. And said, well, what if we, you know, what if we looked at the presidential election and we started mapping the candidates against, you know, the demographics of the country? And we did it and we said, oh, wow, that's pretty scary when you can, you know, look and see and say, well, wait a minute, you know, this person's not going to connect. That's not where people's heads are at. So there's 4 quadrants. There's a basic, a versatile, and artistic and enrich. The basic quadrant, paperclip, slow self-actualization, low interactivity, right? Does its job, you pick it up, you don't think about it, you're talking, you're on the screen, whatever, does its job. Low materials, well-engineered, well-designed, fits ergonomically, you don't even think about it at all. You don't go home thinking, God, that was a great paperclip experience I had today, right? It's not self-actualizing. Skip loader represents the versatile quadrant. Eyes, ears, hands, feet, right? But it's not self-actualizing either. We see the basic quadrant, you might see like brooms, kitchen buckets, you know, these types of things. You see technology, you know, skip loaders, these types of things over here. Artistic zone, you see a lot of fashion in here. The Mona Lisa is a great example for the extremely artistic zone because it's highly self-actualizing and it's very low interactivity. There's a process, you got to get to France, you got to get to Paris, you got to get to the line to get a ticket, to get in line to get to the Louvre, to get to the Louvre, to get in line, to see it behind a rope, 15 feet back, and it's small, and it's behind glass, and it's tiny, and there's a guard, you know, right there, and there's people in line, you get your 10 seconds, and you remember it for the rest of your life. If somebody were to, you know, tell you, or you think that maybe it's a forgery and the real one's in a vault somewhere, you don't really even care. You're just like, in there, you believe it, and it's something you remember. And for some people, and this is the hardest zone to define, the enriched quadrant are lifestyle products. You know, guitars are great examples of products that live in the enriched quadrant. And more people are moving into these upper quadrants, right? So it's the look, it's the feel, it's the smell. Someone who aspires to having a Ferrari, it's a point of accomplishment in their life. It's not me. I'm not a Ferrari owner. I'm not professing people should be a Ferrari owner. But it's the example of the extreme. But what gets interesting is that if we look at who people are and what roles we play, everything changes. So it's people specific, and I'm going to show the example of Life Technologies. But we could all agree that the basic phone we get for free would be lower left. The iPhone 6 would be upper right. Anybody here get the basic phone for free? I'm amazed. I ask this question every time I talk. This is the third talk I've done this week. It's been a busy week in talks. No one ever says they got that, right? It's for free. We're all like moving up in here. That's us. What if you're this person who delivers hay on a bicycle in Africa, right? And I'm always impressed, which is how enormous Africa is. You know, we have this vision of, you know, maybe it's bigger than Texas, maybe it's, you know, maybe it's bigger than the United States. No, it's got, you can fit the United States, you can fit China, you can fit India, Japan, United Kingdom, Eastern Europe, and pretty much Western Europe, all in that one continent. Absolutely mind-blowing. Back to this person. If you're that person, that basic phone was all the way upper right. It's who we are, right? And in fact, it's who we are in that role. I may be one person at work. When I go out to dinner, I'm another person, and I become a different persona. You know, when I'm a parent, I'm a different persona. When I'm a grandparent, I'm a different persona. Probably a better grandparent than parent, but that's a different story, right? It moves up upper right for that person. Now they've got a bank account. They're in connection with friends and family. You know, they're doing business over the phone. And it's amazing to see someone living in a mud house, no water, no heating, right? No electricity, a straw roof, right? No bathroom facilities, and a corrugated steel door for the door with a padlock and a chain to lock it up. But still, that basic phone gives them something that they now have that gives them that mobility. In fact, what we're seeing is that today the youth, you know, in developed economies, their mobility comes from their smartphones. When I turned 16, I was at that door of the DMV, I think like 2 hours before it opened, to try to get in there and get my tests, because that provided mobility and freedom, and I could do things I could never do. Same feeling I had, I think, when I had my first bicycle. It's like, I can go see the world, you know, within a few blocks. But I can go do things. What does that smartphone do for our youth today? It gives them that same feeling. That's why we see younger people who turn 16 and they still need to drive, and still mom and dad are driving them, because they're getting that effect through those things. So, Life Technologies, a real life example. We were engaged with Life Technologies and we transformed this type of product into this type of product. We were brought in to do a global design language for a multi-billion-dollar company that grew through acquisition. Each company they acquired had a different design language, which meant a different meaning and a different relationship to the audience. The first thing we did was we used the maps, and you can do this, is you personify and you develop your understanding of your audience. And we use maps, we look at psychographics and demographics, and we look at who the audience is, and we get the right spread and the right mix. It's usually about 8 personas, 10 personas, 12 personas. You learn them well enough that you can see where they're on the map. I thought, my hypothesis was everyone was going to be in the versatile quadrant. It's like, sure, I know scientists. My sister-in-law is a scientist. I know. You know, they're all about speeds and feeds and needs and these types of things. No, what did all these people see? Their heads were in a different place. They weren't thinking about their technology in that way. They were saying, we're going to change the world. Our DNA sequencing technology is going to increase the length and quality of everyone on the planet. This is what happens today, is people don't think about their product as a product anymore. They look at what it's going to do for them, the world. They're looking for a trophy. What we also learn is that people are on a trajectory. Everyone's on a trajectory. What we're happy with today, we're looking for the next thing tomorrow. How can Apple come up with so many different phones every year and sell so many pre-sales, right? Because we need to evolve, right? We're constantly looking to be something more tomorrow than we were today. So these people are going into this enriched quadrant because they're looking for a trophy of technology that represents who they are and what they're doing for the world. That creates the opportunity zone. That's the white space. White space is created by where people are going. It's people-centric. It's human-centric. Where are people going? That tells you whether they'll adopt or reject something. If you land in the zone, they're going to adopt it because that's where their emotions are. That's where their aspirations are. You got to fill in all of the rest of the blanks. You got to prove everything out. But with the opportunity zone, we also look at the brand. You learn the brand so well that you can form an aggregate understanding and place it on the map. And what's interesting about the map is it's such a great tool because you do this as a team. Right? As a team, you move these pieces of paper around until you're all in agreement. You debate and discuss. It's not prescriptive, it's collaborative. Turns out Illumina, their #1 competitor, is right in the opportunity zone with their branding. Here's our client, AB. Applied Biosystems, part of Life Technologies. That's the branding on every product and everywhere. First thing we did was transform that into Life Technologies. Turned it into a product badge that represented something magical about DNA. DNA in itself is magical. DNA floats. That's 2 pieces of plastic glued together and the air is vacuumed out. Life is put onto the back of the first piece of plastic. The second piece of plastic is silk screen with technologies on it and white behind that, and the glue goes behind that. That means the life actually floats, and as light moves, the shadow moves around. So it becomes active. Extremely low cost, incredibly impactful, right? So we moved the branding. So we looked at personas on the map, we looked at the branding. Now you look at the competitive landscape of products. Illumina is in the artistic zone. Our Chief and Design Innovation Officer worked at another group that designed that award-winning design. It's $500,000 worth of technology. It's beautiful. Is it meaningful? Does it say it's the most state-of-the-art, the fastest, the most versatile, the most reliable technology out there? No. Our clients is right where the brand is, right? For some reason, it looks like it predates the discovery of DNA. It's a DNA sequencer that, you could swear predates DNA. It looks like it was adopted from something else, adopted out of the 70s. So that led to that transformation. It is exactly the same technology, exactly the same guts.
transformed into something more meaningful. This is part of a global design language, and you see all of the map of everything there together. And not only is it universal, repeatable, easy to understand, it forms another tool, is that it allows you, and this has been so interesting, it allows you to recall things you couldn't otherwise recall. If you get up and you have to recall all of the research you did on that persona, and just spit it out to explain it to someone, if you could recall all of that, the other person's not going to get it. When you attach visual to it, and you have to get in front of the CEO of a $5 billion company, and the CMO, and the CTO, and explain everything to them, it's amazing that when you have those visuals, those personas, your recall goes to a completely different level through the visual. So having the meaning behind the visual means that you can communicate. And in 2 hours, we were able to show 3 different design concepts. The one we recommended, the personas, the mapping, and the reason we were recommending one in 2 hours, we gained alignment from that C-suite that controlled a $5 billion company on which way to go with their global design language in just 2 hours. That's unprecedented. I mean, that just only happens if you can go in with such authenticity, such depth, but you can only have that if you can show it visually, you can explain it. This is part of the global design language, right? Which actually is a huge book. It's about 150 pages. It tells them how to do everything for all of those different companies. So this is the net out result. This is on the left, you see their device they announced last year's CES, which is a sequencer that will do a sequence in 2 hours for $1,000. That means everyone can get a DNA sequence, you can get the results, high quality results. You can test food, you can diagnose if there's bad food. If we get a disease, they can diagnose how to treat us. There's so much benefit. While in acquisition mode, right? We started, they were a $5 billion valuation. 3 years later, they get acquired for 15.6, right? Technology combined with benefit, understanding, and resonance. Illumina pitched the same type of product solution the same week that they did. Don't ask me, I don't know how that happens, but they did. This stole all the thunder, right? You know, people were just writing about it. And everyone was, all the buzz was about it. And you can read about the hit of the Consumer Electronics Show. It was not consumer electronics at all. It was a DNA sequencer. And look at the net out business result. That's how much it means. It's like the mini-med. So I'm not here to pitch books, but if someone would like to read more about this methodology, I do have a book out called Predictable Magic. It's available on ebooks and Amazon and Apple iTunes. There also is a Harvard case study, an exercise that's very cheap reading, but also we'll walk you through. We did Harvard, I should say, did a case study on psychosthetics and how we reinvented the electric guitar, and that became so popular that they approached us to develop an exercise to use in business classrooms. You know, I'm sure Gerhard's going to make sure that everyone uses it at CLU. And it's a great exercise, and we're going to actually start another Harvard case study on Fresh Realm any day now. So there's that, and then there's final words of wisdom that I swear that Einstein was talking to me, right? The famous saying, we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. New, fresh thinking, new, fresh eyes, you know, allows us to do things, and do things that are relevant, and do things that are meaningful. So that's what I'm about. That's what I hope everybody else is about too, and thank you.